Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the MACE Podcast. I'm your host, Marco Macente, and I'm so excited to be here with all of you today. Our next topic are the United States with my next guest, Jeffrey Emile. Jeff started his career at General Motors at the age of 21. He honed his leadership skills by spearheading product teams in the global sales, marketing, and customer experience divisions for multiple years. When the pandemic changed the way companies operated, Jeff recognized a gap in workplace connections among distributed and remote teams that would only continue to evolve and opted to invest his efforts in building Lynk, where he is now the founder. I had a pleasure conversation with Jeff focusing on D&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the role that ERGs, the Employee Resources Group, can play for companies and organizations in the new workplace after the pandemic. We touched the importance of the D&I strategy, the importance of ERG, and of course, what is going to 2024 and 2025 bring to this field. Please enjoy our conversation. Hi, Jeff. How are you? Welcome to the MACE Podcast.
Hey, Marco, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you today.
Yes, thanks a lot, Jeff. I was looking for that interaction, and it is a pleasure to introduce you to the audience of the MACE Podcast, as I'm sure that the topics that we're going to discuss today matter a lot for the audience and for the people that will be listening to the episode. So, Jeff, I have already shared some of your background and your experience with the audience. You are the founder and CEO of Lynk, a platform created to enhance the human and digital experience for companies and organizations. So can you please share with us what you brought in this field, and how do you see the new workplace after the pandemic, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to give some backstory before I get into that.
Yeah.
For all our viewers out there, I started my career as product designer for General Motors. And I reached a point in time where I felt there was a need to go jump out and start my own company. And I did that not knowing the global pandemic was going to hit 3 months later. So you can say that was perfect timing in a way, right? So when the pandemic hit, I just began to really look around and see how many things were changing in real time. So often people talk about there are moments in history that disrupt and change the rules and change the ways that we do things. And for our company, what we realized was a really unique opportunity to jump in and help create the technology that was going to impact the future of work, right? And I think that's a topic that many people are thinking about and many people are still trying to figure out. So our technology is just really focused around how can we help distributed and remote organizations drive deeper connections between their employees, between their affinity groups, and between the overall company at large.
Yeah. So thanks a lot. Let's say that you are focused on the building such a kind of infrastructure that is a software, of course, digital infrastructure in order to enable the companies to face the new workplace, the workplace that actually we have after the pandemic. And speaking about the workplace, I feel, as per our conversation before the podcast, I feel that the new workplace is broken and is full of fragmentations and complications that disconnect people more than connected them. So which is the root cause from a human being perspective, in your opinion, and what can be the solution, Jeff?
Yeah, great question, Marco. Before I even go into that, I think the thing we have to look at is even outside of the workplace, loneliness is such a big thing, and the world is facing such a big loneliness epidemic that many people are aware of, and I think many people are not aware of. So that translating to the workplace is not very surprising to me. Now, however, I think the things that can accentuate or make those things feel bigger than they are when we don't create the spaces and the opportunities to find how we can address them in the workplace, right? And I do believe that there are things that employers are doing to address it. I think ERGs and BRGs and affinity groups can be great tools to help employees stay connected and get a sense of community at work. And I strongly suggest for anyone to get involved. And if you're a company that's thinking about starting an ERG or affinity group, I strongly recommend that, because what you'll find is it's easy to get into a company and get lost in, the great number of people who are there. And I think it's a really, really powerful impact on an employee's experience to get that access to community.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, Jeff. As you saw also from my LinkedIn profile, I'm actually involved in the ERG space, and I really think that ERGs are the future. So definitely, I love hearing your opinion, and I love hearing your point of view on how ERG can call people in rather than call people out, especially in the new workplace where loneliness and the fragmentation that we feel is one of the root cause, right, that can disconnect people more than connected them. So now that we have introduced the role of the ERGs and the D&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion, we know that across the world, companies and organizations really strive to have in their mission and in their vision the DEI strategies and objectives. So which is the role that ERGs play, in your opinion, within the organization from a D&I perspective? And how do you foster the D&I culture within your initiatives, Jeff?
Right. I think it plays a big role. I think representation in any group of people is very important, and you want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable having a seat at the table. So when we think about, the importance that DEI plays in the global workplace, I think it's critical to make sure that we are giving everybody an equitable opportunity, as well as making sure that everybody feels included. And I think that the more that we think about, how we can do that, I think the better that will be. And specifically, I know you're in Italy. In the United States, there's a large conversation right now around, DEI, and there are polarizing views on it.
Yeah.
And I do think it's important that no matter what's happening, that a conversation is happening, most importantly, because once you stop talking about it, that's when it starts dying, right? But I do think that it is critical to make sure that, any workplace has the measures put in place to ensure that their employees feel seen, to make sure that their employees feel included, and to make sure that their employees feel like they have equal opportunity to achieve the same things.
Yeah, yeah. And I totally agree with you again, because of course, ERGs are part of the employee experience. And from an employee point of view, I feel and I like when I feel represented, right, within the workplace in which I work every day. So such a kind of topics are more than ever important, and we see the companies and organizations are paying attention to the topics that belong to the AI. And one other thing that I would like to mention, and I don't know if you agree with me, is that the sense of belonging is actually what people are looking for. Pandemic or not, fragmentation or not, people that are working remotely are really looking for this sense of belonging in order to be part of something bigger, feeling being part of something bigger. And the DRGs and, of course, the possibility to feel represented, I think that this falls into this direction where people can feel more represented and they can feel that they are part of something bigger, which is, of course, the organization in which they work. What do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I think that feeling of community and that feeling of belonging is so important in every aspect of our lives, right?
Yeah.
And I know, oftentimes, people may comment that, hey, work isn't the place I'm looking for. Community work is where I come to work, but we spend so much of our lives there, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
only natural that we find ways to create the opportunities for people to have that connection. And I'll circle back too. I think oftentimes when we talk about DEI, we often think about, I think, very surface level aspects of that of, okay, hey, I want to make sure that, everybody looks the same way I look, or I want to make sure that, all the groups of people that share this view are in one place. But it's so much more larger than that, right? There's neurodiversity, right? There's so many things that come into play when you think about accessibility for people. So I always challenge people that when we think about how do we create truly an inclusive experience, it's thinking about things beyond what are just the surface level and making sure that everyone has that sense of feeling of belonging and that sense of feeling of community at work.
Yeah, yeah. So thanks a lot for sharing also your insight. And I'm sure that the audience will treasure this information as I will, especially nowadays in this new workplace that we face every day. So speaking about the new trends, the new updates, we are in July 2024, half a year already gone. So which are the trends that in 2024, in your opinion, are meaningfully shaping the work and the relationship that humans have within the organization? And what do you see coming next, Jeff?
Yeah, great question. I think when we think about the trends right now, I think we're still in the discovery phase of this era of the future of workplace, right? I
Mhm.
think many people are still trying to figure out what is it that it's going, or how is it going to impact, and what is it going to look like. So, I think we have such an awesome opportunity to be pioneers right now and explore and ask questions. And there are a lot of great organizations, that we have spoken with who are trying new things, right? So I think that in this discovery phase, the trend that we'll see are people battling the line of, do I try something new or do I stick to what I know, right? And I always encourage people, with as much carefulness as possible to
Mhm.
don't be afraid to try new things. The ways that which we worked before may not operate, it may not work for what's happening in the future, right? So what does that mean? Do we stay where we are? We went from cassette players to CDs to MP3 players now to digital devices. So there's always an evolution in things, and I encourage people to embrace the evolution of change, at the pace to which they feel most comfortable.
Yeah.
Where we'll be in the future from now, it's hard to predict, right? I think we're seeing, such interesting takes on what's happening. We know offices or some organizations have shut down their entire physical offices, and they're saying, hey, never return to work. But we see other places who are saying, hey, come back to work, right? So I think it's hard to predict exactly where it's going to land, but I do think what we'll see is the continued emergence of distributed work, remote work, and hybrid work, right? I think that's where we know things are going to continue to evolve, but the level at which they advance, I think that's something that we're all keeping a close eye on watching.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, I will be sharing with the audience the link of Lynk, and of course, the link of your initiatives that you are managing, are leading within your blog, and of course, within the company that you run. So, in order to let the audience see pretty much what can an initiative like the one that you run be ERG or DAI oriented in light to the trends that we have just discussed. So, of course, this is very interesting to explore since we are in this exploring phase, as you mentioned before. Jeff, what is 2024 bringing to you? And is there any last thought that you would like to share with the audience?
Great question. I think 2024 has brought to me, it has reiterated the importance of keeping an open mind, right? I think
Mhm.
that as we go about our lives, it's very easy, as I mentioned before, to stick to what we know and stay in our comfort zone. I think 2024, and even just the past, I think 3 years for all of us, has really taught us the importance of not being afraid to break things and try new things and explore new paths. So I think for me, the rest of 2024 it will be a continuation of blazing new trails, and walking into uncertainty, with the confidence that we'll be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Change is scary, but I think that it's important to make sure that we embrace it. So that's what I look at when I think of the rest of 2024 for myself.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking about the change that is happening, across different industries and across the globe, the change is going to affect also ERGs, right? And the DEI. And we see companies that are reoriented and are reorienting themselves in order to get a get strategy and the better strategy also from a DNI perspective. Do you think that, as a last thought with the audience to be shared, 2025 is going to change something in the ERG landscape? Do you think that the light under the ERG is going to be brighter and is going to be more important? Or do you think that ERG are important, will stay important as they are now?
I think the trend is going up. I think ERGs are starting to get a lot more publicity. I think more people are talking about them, even post the pandemic. I think companies are trying to figure out ways of how do they revitalize their ERGs. ERGs took a really big hit during the pandemic, for, a great number of companies. So I think that there is a larger conversation happening as we speak to people thinking about, how do we get our ERGs more involved, especially now, maybe a more distributed world. So I have a positive outlook in 2025 that I
Mhm.
think ERGs will continue to come to the front, and I think that as people experience the community that can be experienced within that, that it's going to have a positive outcome. And I encourage the audience of if you're not involved in an ERG, ask how you can get involved. If your company hasn't started one, start one, right? It's so important to make sure, I think, that as we go into this next phase of work, that we make sure we address the community, issues and the community problems that I think the world is facing.
Yeah, of course. And the DRG can be a good space where those kind of issues can be addressed, right? So thanks a lot. It has been an interesting conversation. I ended up my questions. So it has been a pleasure to have you here in the MACE podcast, Jeff, sharing your insights, your initiative, and your willingness in building the future of the new workplace when speaking about the DE&I and, of course, the ERG landscape. I will share, as I said, with the audience a little bit of information about what you do, the link of Lynk, that is actually your initiative with the L capital letter. And of course, for the other information, I will encourage the audience to deep dive into the ERG matter and the ERG's topic, because this is the future. So it's a good opportunity to stay connected and to keep up with what is happening around the future trends of the workplace. So thanks a lot, Jeff. It has been a pleasure. Of course, keep in touch and wishing you a nice day ahead.
Thank you so much, Marco. It was a pleasure to talk with you. And I look forward to staying in touch.